Hello and welcome to Plate and Palate with Megan and Abby. I am Abby Gardner. I own a meal prep service called Abby Cooks Wild, and I serve clients up and down the Front Range of Colorado with fully customized menus and meal plans to help them simplify dinner each night. I am joined here today with two amazing women. Megan, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Abby. Hi, everybody. I'm Megan McGee. I'm a registered dietetic tech, certified mind body eating coach, and owner of Nourish Nutrition Consulting. I have a virtual practice specializing in supporting clients with chronic health changes, including autoimmune conditions, menopause, just those long-term health changes, and offering nutrition solutions to support the body and healing.
And today we are continuing our conversation with our amazing friend and colleague, Mindy Kain of Kain Meats. If you haven't yet watched part one, you want to definitely go back and do that because we are continuing on. There is so much to unpack here. Mindy, thank you so much for being here with us. Share with us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to dive right into part two.
Sounds good. You are correct. There's so much to talk about in this industry. So I'm Mindy Kain. My husband Mark and I own Kain Meats just east of Kersey, Colorado, which is east of Greeley. We raise beef and have just recently in the last year pulled in a pork producer as well. So that is the name Kain Meats. We wanted to eventually find different partners. So I am super thrilled to be here with the two most powerful women that I know, and you guys are amazing in what you do, and I'm so excited to be able to share more about.
All right, Mindy. So help us learn a little bit more. We really want to get into deeper conversation around, I'm going to say the nutrition around how our foods get into table and what it all means. So in our first conversation, you shared a little bit about how as you're feeding your cattle, their fat content is significantly less than maybe compared to a feedlot. Will you talk a little bit more? What does that really mean as far as end product?
Absolutely. So yeah, I touched on the difference between the back fat on our beef and beef that you find in the grocery store. When you think about fat in a beef product, there's actually two different things you want to think of. The marbling is actually the omega fat. That is the good fat that we find in the beef product, where the back fat or the fat on the outside of the carcass, that is what researchers are finding that is not necessarily the most healthy fat that you can consume. So it really does impact your health in a way. So where we feed the high fiber, high protein barley diet or the brewer's grain, we don't end up with a lot of that back fat. So we actually had our product lab tested. That's how firmly I feel about the quality. And what we have found is that our beef is actually about the same level or maybe even a little bit higher than grass-fed beef. So when you think about all of these buzzwords that you guys have been throwing around, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many different avenues that we can talk about and think about. And fat is only one piece of the puzzle. So if you have that really good marbling, not only does it add a beautiful butteriness and flavor and texture to that meat, it's also that healthy omega-6, if I'm right, the omega-6 fat that we want to get in our diet. So that's one piece.
So fascinating. It really is. And this is where I know Abby and I are so hungry for this conversation. And it's what we've been sharing because when you're the consumer and you're just in the grocery store and you're just seeing these buzzwords, grass-fed, grass-finished, organic, free range, no hormones, no antibiotics, like there's so many buzzwords and there's questions of, what does it all really mean and the integrity of it? And especially from, if you will, start to finish, right? From the initial raising of the cattle to the end product, if you will. How does it all come together? So Mindy, will you tell us more around some of these buzzwords, grass-fed, grass-finished, and how this relates to your farm and how you guys step into it?
Yeah, absolutely. And what you just mentioned, there's so many avenues to take and still so much to talk about. So a grass-fed animal, all beef are grass-fed. Every single one of them, they are ruminants. That is the majority of their diet. That is what they are fed, whether they're on a pasture or in a corral or in a feedlot, they have grass. Um, when you have a grass-fed animal, it doesn't necessarily mean that that animal was never fed corn. That just means they're fed grass. You have a grass finished animal or a grass fed and finished animal, that means that animal is 100% grass fed. So they don't see any other grain in their lifespan. There's a couple different things about this. Grass fed finished animals do tend to lead to a healthier product, but it also has, some people would call an off flavor. Some people would term that like a wild or gamey kind of flavor. So they're not getting some of that marbling that you find in a grain finished animal that people associate with a beautiful, high quality tasting ribeye. So that's kind of the downside to a grass finished animal is sometimes that taste where you have and I have a hard time answering the question because everybody comes to me and says, "Are you grass fed?" And I'm like, yes, but, and they ask if I'm grain fed. And it's hard for me to answer because barley is not one of those grains that's considered when we're having this conversation. When
Right.
people associate grain fed animals, it's corn finished grain fed animals. So I have to be really careful when I talk to people. And I had somebody yesterday actually ask me if I was grain fed. And I'm like, can't really, yes and no. So they're really more interested in that corn fed finishing piece, which is what they associate with the feedlots. Now, you also have the feedlots feeding a very well balanced diet, which includes a silage. Silage is nothing more than a chopped hay or a chopped corn. So they go into the cornfield and they chop the entire stalk. They chop the corn and all. So it is that grass quality that they get in that silage, but they also get the chopped corn. Take me on a different question because I want to make sure that we stay on track a little bit and that I don't hijack the conversation.
So I'm going to ask one more question around this corn stuff, because I think a lot of people, like you just said, we are fed this information that has a certain skewed viewpoint, I think is a diplomatic way of putting it. So it's not that the corn is bad. So what is like, if you could set the record straight, if you will, if corn isn't bad, why is it being demonized? And how do we navigate and understand better for our viewers and for anyone who might be watching this, corn isn't bad, but, right? So
Wow, you just opened up an entire can of worms there, Abby.
Great question, Abby. Great question.
This is what I do.
Yeah,
Cans of worms.
Yeah. And that's a fantastic question. So I'm going to do my best in doing that question justice. Most people, because, and we're throw around another buzzword at the GMOs.
Yeah.
Corn is a very well-known genetically modified organism that resists pests.
Yeah.
I want to state that because the corn is now naturally resisting these pests, therefore eliminating the need for a pesticide. So there's a whole nother conversation that can happen around that piece.
Yeah.
So with this genetically modified organism, You're now eliminating this pesticide that is an environmental destructive chemical.
Wow.
So that's the one piece to the corn story. Now we take it back to the cattle. The cattle are being fed this corn product. I said before, they're ruminants. A ruminant means that this organism, the cow, can digest 95 I think percent of this feed stuff that we can't even touch. So much. If we were trying to eat the same diet as cow, it would just be eliminated. We wouldn't be able to digest it. Where the ruminant digests over and over and over and over. So they pull all of this nutrient, the vitamin Bs and the omega fats, they pull all of that out of the grain, out of their food, out of their grass, out of anything that they're eating, put it into their muscle. That's why beef is such a powerhouse protein, because they've already done the work for us and given us this hugely nutritious piece of protein.
Wow.
So in short, without taking up a tremendous amount of time, I think I kind of answered your question.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was really, Mindy, thank you for sharing that too, because my brain doesn't quite track that way. So I find that conversation quite interesting. From my profession perspective, I think so much against GMOs because it alters the end product. But I also hadn't thought of it the other way, that now we're not adding an herbicide or a pesticide. So it's really quite fascinating how to consider some of this conversation.
And when you think about the genetics, you think about the DNA, it's a protein. That protein, that DNA protein, is broken down by the enzymes in the cow's digestive system.
Yeah. So fascinating.
Very.
Yeah.
And that's a piece of the puzzle that we have a hard time. So I really, really appreciate you all having me on, because those are pieces of the puzzle. You look at the agriculture industry, we're a very quiet population. We're just out doing our job, creating a quality food product for our customers to enjoy. And we're not out screaming about this, that, or the other thing. And it's really, education needs to be a priority for us. But we're so busy out here creating a quality product that we don't have those educational avenues.
Yeah. I'll also add, Mindy, I really value, for what it's worth, at your farm, I'm going to say the language around sustainability. I actually really, organically, I tend to think about being so much of a recycler. How do we reduce what we're using? How do we, use things over in different ways to get some endurance out of these different things? So I really love how you guys are using, let's call it a grain, but from the breweries. And so again, just instead of, one industry that has a waste, now it's something that's becoming a nourishment to your animals and such an important part of sustainability in the work that you guys do.
You'll find that in so many places. Agriculture really is looking at all of the food waste that we have in our culture and trying to use it for different ways to be able to sustain our animals. And really, every brewery, every distillery that I know of does the same thing. So there's producers all over the place that are doing the same thing we are. And that's really the backbone of agriculture. If we don't take care of our ground, if we don't take care of what we own, it doesn't exist. We can't sustain that. So when you look at agriculture as an industry, that's our primary concern, is taking care of the environment, taking care of our environment.
Yeah. So good.
So there's a whole lot of different conversations that really happen with the agriculture, and I'm super proud to be a member of that industry, and am often saddened at the target that is put on agriculture back. And I think it stems back to agriculture is an easy target because we don't scream and yell until it gets to the point that we're driving our tractors through the street of London because it's so unfair. It really does have to get to that point for us to kind of speak up.
Mm. Mindy, if you could leave us with one takeaway. I know, we've really kind of covered a lot of different conversations, and especially from the lens of, nutrition and even life cycle and the vision of running a sustainable farm and everything. If you could leave us with one thought, one last conversation, one idea, share with us a juicy nugget.
I think really my biggest thought is find a small producer with whatever protein, with whatever fruit, vegetable, anything. Find somebody in your community that is producing your food. Get to know that person. Have a conversation with that person. Find out who they are, not just what they're doing, but find out who they are as a human. Form that relationship. And I guarantee your food will taste better, it will be better, and you will have more nutrition.
Yeah. We've so stepped away from the idea of farm to table.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really what you're suggesting is how do we take that step? How do we return to a farm to table experience? Yeah.
Yeah. I know for the beef industry, the Colorado Beef Council has a website with a list of beef producers throughout the state of Colorado. That's a really good place to start. Farmers markets are all over the place. One question you can ask a producer is, did you grow this? And that's a great way to just get a concept of where that product is coming from. So there's several organizations. The Colorado Pork Council is another one that would give information on pork. So a couple really good places to go to find information about the food that you're consuming.
Wow.
Thank you so much for sharing all of these tidbits and nuggets and ahas with us.
Thank you guys so much for having me. And I hope that I've left some sort of lasting longing for more information, that your viewers are going to go and find somebody to get that information from, or even start to dig into it a little bit deeper to find really what it's about.
Yeah.
I will tell you, Mindy, my brain is going 1,000 miles a minute. And so I
Me
really
too.
appreciate your expertise, your passion, your commitment. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. And I'm just so honored to get to have this time with you. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. I'm honored to share this space with both of you.